Imagine standing in the hush of an ancient forest, every footstep a whisper, every broken twig a clue left by a creature that has walked these woods long before us. The air is cool, the mist curls around the trunks, and a fresh set of footprints glistens in the soft mud like a secret waiting to be read. In that moment, you feel the pulse of a world that speaks in patterns, a language that our ancestors learned to master so they could survive. And just a few paces away, a simple wooden snare, crafted from a bent sapling and a length of natural cord, sits ready to close with a silent click the instant the unsuspecting animal steps into its grasp. This is not a scene from a fantasy film. It is a living lesson in the art of primary hunting and tracking, a skill set that has fed generations and still holds the power to transform how we relate to the wild today. If you're as curious as I am about unlocking these ancient secrets, smash that like button now. It tells the algorithm we're on the right trail together. I'm standing at the edge of this forest, the same edge where I first realized that a track could be more than a mark. It could be a story. I still remember the day I stumbled upon a set of rabbit prints that led me to a hidden hollow, and inside I found a cache of berries and a fresh water source that saved my hike. That experience sparked a fire in me, a desire to learn the language of the land, to read the subtle signs that most people simply overlook. In today's world, where technology often distances us from nature, the ability to interpret these clues reconnects us to a primal sense of self-reliance. Whether you're a survival enthusiast, a bushcraft hobbyist, or someone who simply wants to walk the woods with a deeper awareness, mastering tracking and silent trapping gives you tools that are both practical and profoundly respectful of the ecosystem. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down 3 core pillars of this ancient craft. First, we'll learn how to identify the most common animal tracks and the secondary signs that accompany them, from the delicate pads of a deer to the scuffed heel of a raccoon. Next, we'll explore how to predict an animal's movement by understanding its habits, the terrain, and the environmental cues that guide it. Finally, we'll get our hands dirty building 3 silent traps designed for small game, using only materials you can find right here in the forest. By the end of this segment, you'll have a practical checklist you can carry in your pocket, a mental map for anticipating where an animal might travel, and step-by-step instructions for constructing a trap that works without a single manufactured part. Stay tuned for the moment that will change how you see any forest floor forever. Let's start with the basics of tracking. The first thing you need to know is that every animal leaves a unique imprint that tells you about its size, its gait, and even its mood. Mammal prints, for example, usually show a clear distinction between the front and hind foot, with the hind foot often being larger and set slightly forward. Deer tracks are oval with a split toe, while a rabbit leaves a round, compact imprint with a small toe pad at the back. Bird tracks are generally three-toed and may have a distinct claw mark, whereas reptiles often leave a series of drag marks rather than distinct prints. When you're out in the field, take a moment to compare the length and width of a print, the spacing between steps, and the depth of the impression. A deeper, more pronounced print usually indicates a heavier animal or a softer substrate, while shallow prints can mean the animal is lighter or the ground is firmer. Remember, the size of the animal is not the only factor. The angle of the stride can also stretch or compress the print, giving you clues about the direction the animal was moving. Now, let's talk about the secondary signs that often accompany a track. Scratch marks on bark, rubs on low-lying branches, and even the way certain plants are bent or broken can point to a recent passage. Scat is another gold mine of information. By examining its size, shape, and content, you can often determine the species, its diet, and even its health. For instance, a pile of small, dark pellets with a strong odor is likely from a rabbit, while larger, more fibrous droppings with bits of bark could belong to a deer. Wind direction also plays a crucial role because scent travels downwind, and animals will often choose routes that keep their scent away from predators. When you find a fresh track, pause and look for any nearby signs that could confirm the species: a broken twig that matches the size of the animal's head, a set of gnawed bark, or a faint trail of crushed leaves leading away. The environment itself offers context that can narrow down your possibilities. Water sources, for example, attract a wide range of wildlife, so tracks found near a stream are likely to belong to animals that need regular hydration. Food sources such as berry bushes, nut trees, or areas with abundant insect activity can also indicate which species might be present. Seasonal changes affect track visibility. In the early spring, fresh mud and thawed leaf litter make prints stand out, while in late autumn, a layer of fallen leaves can mask them unless you look closely. Knowing the time of year and the local food cycle helps you anticipate which animals are most active in a given area. Now I want you to try a quick field test. If you're watching from a backyard, a park, or a nearby trail, pause the video and scan the ground for any fresh disturbances, perhaps a set of small paw prints, a broken twig, or a fresh scrape on a rock. Take a mental note of what you see, and then comment below with your best guess about what animal left those signs. Even if you're not sure, share what clues led you to your conclusion. This little exercise not only sharpens your observation skills, but also builds a habit of actively engaging with the environment around you. Let's recap what we've covered so far. First, you learned how to differentiate between mammal, bird, and reptile tracks by looking at shape, size, and toe arrangement. Second, you discovered the value of secondary signs like scratch marks, scat, and wind-carried scent trails. Third, you considered the environmental context, water, food sources, and seasonal changes to narrow down which species might be present. Keep this checklist in mind as you move forward. Identify the print, note the depth and stride, search for accompanying signs, and evaluate the surrounding habitat. With these fundamentals solidified, you're ready to move on to the next stage, predicting where the animal is likely to travel next and choosing the perfect spot to set a silent trap. This transition is where intuition meets strategy, and it's where many hunters either succeed or miss their chance. Animals don't wander randomly. They follow routes that maximize safety and efficiency. Some species travel in straight lines between feeding and resting sites, while others adopt erratic, zigzag patterns to avoid predators. Understanding the daily activity cycles of the animal you're tracking, whether it's most active at dawn, dusk, or during the night, can help you narrow down the time window for a successful trap. For instance, rabbits are crepuscular, meaning they are most active during the early morning and late evening, often moving from their burrow to feeding grounds along the same narrow pathways. Deer, on the other hand, may travel longer distances between water sources and bedding areas, often using natural corridors like ridgelines or valleys that provide cover and easy navigation. One of the most powerful tools in a hunter's mind is the concept of travel corridors, or game trails. These are essentially natural funnels, ridges, gullies, or strips of vegetation that guide animals along the path of least resistance. By scanning the terrain from a higher vantage point, you can spot subtle depressions in the ground, worn-down vegetation, or even a line of broken twigs that indicates repeated use. Drone footage or a simple topographic map can reveal these corridors from above, but even a keen eye on the ground can pick them out. When you identify a corridor, you're essentially finding a highway that the animal uses daily, and that's the perfect place to set your trap. Behavioral triggers also come into play. Weather changes, for example, can force animals to alter their routes. A sudden rainstorm might drive a rabbit out of its cover and into a more sheltered area, often a low-lying thicket or a hollow log. Predators in the vicinity can cause prey to take a less direct route, seeking safety in denser vegetation. Food availability is another driver. A fresh patch of tender shoots or a berry bush will draw animals repeatedly, creating high-traffic zones. By observing these triggers, you can anticipate when and where an animal is likely to pass, increasing the odds that your trap will be triggered at the right moment. Now that we understand movement patterns, travel corridors, and behavioral triggers, it's time to talk about the practical side of trap placement. The key is to choose a choke point, a narrow section of a trail, where the animal has little room to maneuver around the trap. Look for natural bottlenecks, a narrow gap between two boulders, a fallen log that creates a bridge over a shallow stream, or a dense thicket that forces the animal to step over a single patch of ground. Position your trap so that the animal must step directly onto the trigger mechanism to continue on its path. Safety is paramount. Always verify that the area is legal to hunt, that you're not targeting protected species, and that you're respecting any local regulations. Remember, the goal is to practice a skill that honors the animal and the ecosystem, not to cause unnecessary suffering. If you've ever guessed where an animal might be heading, drop a comment with your best prediction for today's hidden rabbit. Let's see how many of us can read the trail correctly. Your insights could help others refine their own tracking abilities, and I love hearing the different perspectives that come from varied experiences in the wild. We're now ready to move from theory to hands-on practice. In the next segment, we'll build 3 silent traps using only natural materials. A simple snare made from a flexible sapling and natural cord, a deadfall that relies on a weighted stone and a trigger branch, and a pitfall camouflaged with leaves and twigs. Each design is tailored to a specific type of terrain and target animal, and I'll walk you through every step, from selecting the right branch to setting the trigger so it reacts instantly to the slightest disturbance. By the end of the tutorial, you'll have a portable toolkit of trap-building knowledge that you can apply wherever you find yourself in the wild. If this is blowing your mind, hit that subscribe button and let's keep exploring together. We'll start by gathering the natural materials you'll need for each of the 3 traps. Walk through the forest floor with an eye for flexible saplings, sturdy branches, smooth stones, and thick vines or bark strips that can serve as cord. The best saplings for a snare are those that are about shoulder height, thin enough to bend without breaking, yet strong enough to hold tension. Look for a sapling that has a slight curve. This natural spring will give your snare the snap you need when the animal triggers it. For the deadfall, you'll want a heavy stone, something the size of a small melon or a bit larger, plus a sturdy branch that can act as a lever. The branch should be long enough to reach the ground when propped up, yet short enough to stay hidden under a few leaves. Finally, for the pitfall, select a shallow depression in the ground, perhaps a natural bowl formed by eroded soil or a spot where the earth is softer after a recent rain. If you can't find a perfect hollow, you can dig a shallow pit using a sturdy stick in your hands, shaping it into a funnel that guides the animal toward the center. Once you have the raw materials, we'll move into the construction phase, starting with the simple snare. Begin by stripping the bark from a length of vine or bark strip, aiming for a piece that's long enough to loop around the sapling and create a slip knot. Tie a secure knot at one end, leaving a loop that can slide freely. Next, create a small loop about the size of a rabbit's head near the free end of the cord. This will be the noose that tightens around the animal's neck or leg. To set the trigger, bend the sapling gently until it stores potential energy, then wedge a small twig under the bent portion to hold it in place. Slip the noose over the bent sapling, then carefully remove the wedge so the sapling snaps back into its original position. When the animal walks through the loop, the tension in the cord will pull the noose tight, securing the catch. Test the snare by pulling the cord gently. It should close cleanly and hold firm without slipping. Now let's transition to the deadfall, a trap that relies on gravity and a simple lever system. First, find a flat area where you can place a stone that will serve as the weight. Position the stone on a small platform made from a flat piece of bark or a shallow depression you've carved. The platform should be just high enough so that the stone can fall onto a trigger branch when the branch is disturbed. Next, locate a sturdy branch that is about waist height, with a natural notch or bend that can act as a trigger. Prop the branch over the stone's platform, creating a small gap that the animal must step into. Secure one end of the branch to a nearby tree or rock using a thin cord, leaving the other end free to move. The key is to attach a thin, nearly invisible trigger, such as a piece of flexible vine, between the branch and a nearby stick. When the animal pushes against the branch, the trigger releases, allowing the branch to swing down and drop the stone onto the animal. To fine-tune the sensitivity, adjust the length of the trigger vine and the angle of the branch. A short, taut vine will make the trap trigger with the lightest touch, while a longer, looser vine will require more pressure. Test the deadfall by gently nudging the trigger stick. The branch should fall smoothly, and the stone should land directly onto the trigger point. The third trap, the pitfall, is perhaps the most subtle of the three because it relies on camouflage rather than mechanical action. Start by locating a natural depression that is deep enough to hold a small animal but not so deep that you cannot retrieve it later. If the ground is hard, you can soften it by soaking the area with water and then digging with a sturdy stick until you achieve a depth of about 1.5 feet. Once the pit is ready, line the bottom with a layer of soft leaves, moss, or grass to cushion the animal's fall and reduce injury. This also helps to keep the animal from scrambling out immediately. Next, create a cover that blends seamlessly with the surrounding terrain. Gather sticks, leaves, twigs, and a thin layer of soil, arranging them over the pit so that the surface looks undisturbed. The cover must be sturdy enough to support the weight of a passing animal, but fragile enough to give way under the animal's own weight. Test the camouflage by stepping lightly over the area. The cover should give a subtle give, indicating that it will collapse under a heavier load. Finally, position a scent lure such as fresh berries, a small piece of dried meat, or even a dab of animal urine near the edge of the pit to attract the target. Place the lure in a shallow depression just outside the pit, so the animal is drawn toward the cover while staying within striking distance. With all three traps constructed, it's time to discuss placement strategy and ethical considerations. The snare works best along a well-defined game trail where the animal moves in a predictable line, especially near feeding areas or water sources. Position the snare where the trail narrows, ensuring the animal cannot bypass the loop without stepping directly into it. The deadfall thrives in locations where animals use natural bridges or crossing points, such as a fallen log over a stream or a narrow ridge between two rocks. Set the deadfall so that the animal must step onto the trigger branch to continue its path. This often means placing it in a spot where the animal's line of sight is blocked, reducing the chance it will notice the trap before stepping onto it. The pitfall is most effective in low-lying, densely vegetated areas where small game moves through underbrush, such as thickets or the edges of a meadow. Position the pit where you've observed fresh tracks leading toward a food source, and ensure that the surrounding vegetation provides enough cover to conceal the trap's edges. Before you finalize any trap placement, double-check local regulations and respect protected species. In many regions, trapping small game is allowed only during specific seasons, and certain animals like protected birds or native reptiles must never be targeted. If you are unsure, consult a local wildlife authority or a reputable field guide before proceeding. Moreover, always consider the ethical impact of your actions. The goal of these traps is not to cause unnecessary suffering, but to provide a swift, humane capture that can sustain you in a survival scenario. After a successful catch, check the animal promptly, dispatch it cleanly if you intend to use it for food, and release any non-target species unharmed. Clean up any debris or remnants of the trap to leave the environment as you found it, minimizing any lasting impact on the ecosystem. Now that the traps are set, let's walk through a practical field test. Begin by walking the trail slowly, observing the fresh tracks you identified earlier. Notice the direction of the prints, the spacing between them, and any signs of recent activity such as disturbed leaves or fresh droppings. As you approach each trap, move quietly, keeping your movements deliberate and your breathing steady. When you reach the snare, pause and listen for any rustle that might indicate an animal nearby. If you see a small movement, a flash of fur, or a twitch of a tail, remain still and allow the animal to approach naturally. The moment the animal steps into the loop, the tension in the cord will close the noose. If the snare triggers, you'll hear the faint snap of the sapling returning to its original shape. Approach the catch slowly, keeping an eye on the animal's behavior. If the animal is still alive, you'll have an opportunity to perform a quick, humane dispatch. If the snare missed, check the trigger mechanism for any snagging debris or misaligned knots, adjust as needed, and reset the trap. Proceeding to the deadfall, position yourself on the opposite side of the trigger branch, maintaining a safe distance. Watch the area where the animal is likely to cross, and keep your focus on the branch's motion. When the animal steps onto the trigger, the vine will release, allowing the branch to fall and the stone to drop onto the target. You may hear a soft thud as the stone lands, followed by a rustle of leaves as the animal reacts. Again, move in calmly, assess the situation, and if necessary, perform a humane finish. In the event that the deadfall did not trigger, examine the trigger vine for slack or wear, and ensure the branch is properly balanced on its fulcrum. Adjust the angle or tension until the mechanism responds to a light touch. Finally, approach the pitfall with caution, keeping a low profile to avoid startling any nearby wildlife. The camouflaged cover may give a subtle dip as you step near its edge, indicating that it's correctly positioned. If an animal steps onto the cover, you'll likely hear a faint crunch as the leaves and twigs give way, followed by a soft thump as the creature drops into the pit. Stay patient. Small game can be shy, and it may take several minutes for an animal to investigate the lure. When you hear movement in the pit, shine a small flashlight into the depression, being careful not to blind the animal. If you confirm a capture, reach in gently, using a sturdy stick or a piece of bark as a lever to pull the animal out without causing additional injury. As always, handle the animal with respect, and if your intention is not to keep it for food, release it promptly in a safe area away from the trap. Throughout this Hansen segment, pay close attention to the subtle cues of the forest, the way the wind carries scent, the rhythm of birdsong, the faint rustle of small mammals moving through leaf litter. These sensory details are as much a part of the hunting and tracking process as the physical traps themselves. By integrating observation, intuition, and practical skill, you'll develop a holistic approach that honors the ancient traditions of our ancestors while adapting to modern survival needs. Now, let's pause for a moment and reflect on what we've accomplished together. You've learned how to read the language of the forest floor, interpret animal behavior, and construct 3 silent, efficient traps using nothing but what nature provides. This knowledge is not just about catching food. It's about building a deeper connection with the world around you, learning to move silently, think strategically, and respect the delicate balance of ecosystems. If you found any of these techniques surprising, or if a particular trap resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing about the creative ways you adapt these methods to your own environments, and your experiences can help others refine their skills. Before we wrap up, let's talk about maintenance and safety after a successful catch. Once you have secured an animal, it's essential to process it quickly to preserve the meat and prevent spoilage. Begin by bleeding the animal. Make a swift incision at the heart or major blood vessels, allowing the blood to drain fully. This not only improves the flavor of the meat, but also reduces the risk of bacterial growth. After bleeding, skin the animal carefully, starting at the hindquarters and working toward the head. Use a sharp, sturdy knife if you don't have one. A sharp stone can serve in a pinch, though it requires extra caution. Remove the internal organs, being mindful of the liver and kidneys, which can be eaten if the animal is healthy. Keep the edible parts cool and protected from insects. You can fashion a simple hanging rack from a sturdy branch, allowing the meat to air dry in a shaded area. If you have access to fire, you can smoke or lightly roast portions to further extend shelf life. In terms of trap reuse, inspect each device after every use. For the snare, check the cord for wear, replace any frayed sections, and red-tighten the knot to ensure it still holds tension. The deadfall stone may shift over time. Reposition it as needed and verify that the trigger branch remains responsive. The pitfall's cover will degrade as leaves and twigs decompose. Refresh the camouflage regularly to maintain its effectiveness. By keeping your traps in good condition, you'll be ready for the next opportunity without having to start from scratch. Let's also consider the broader context of modern survival ethics. In many parts of the world, people still rely on wild game for sustenance, and the skills we've explored today are part of a long lineage of knowledge passed down through generations. However, with the rise of technology and urban living, fewer individuals have the chance to engage directly with nature in this way. By practicing these techniques responsibly, you contribute to the preservation of cultural heritage and promote a deeper respect for wildlife. Share what you've learned with friends, family, or local survival groups, and encourage a dialogue about sustainable hunting practices. When communities value the balance between taking and giving back, ecosystems thrive, and the traditions endure. As we conclude this journey through the art of primary hunting and tracking, I want to thank you for staying with me from the first footstep on the forest floor to the final knot on the snare. If this video sparked a new curiosity, if you feel more confident stepping into the wild, or if you simply enjoyed watching the process unfold, let that feeling guide you toward more exploration. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future episodes where we'll dive into advanced shelter building, fire starting with friction, and navigating by the stars. Your support helps keep this channel alive and allows us to keep sharing the timeless wisdom of the wilderness. Remember, the forest is a living library, and each track, each rustle, each subtle scent is a page waiting to be read. The more you practice, the more fluent you become in its language, and the better you can coexist with the creatures that share these spaces. So go out, observe, experiment, and respect the land. And whenever you return, bring back stories, questions, and insights that we can discuss together. Until our next adventure, stay safe, stay curious, and keep the trail alive. The forest whispers long after we turn away, and each rustle of leaf or distant call carries a lesson waiting to be uncovered. Imagine the next time you step onto a moss-soft path, you already feel the pulse of the ground, the faint imprint of a creature that passed hours before, and the subtle shift in the wind that hints at its direction. That awareness is not a trick of the mind. It is a skill honed by countless generations, and it grows stronger with every observation you make. Think back to the moment you first noticed a set of tracks that did not belong to you. Perhaps it was a delicate series of prints near a creek, or a broken twig that seemed deliberately placed. In that instant, you held a piece of the wild story in your hands. The more you practice, the clearer the narrative becomes. You begin to anticipate the rhythm of the animal's day, the places it seeks shelter, the routes it favors when the sun climbs high or when night settles like a blanket. This predictive sense is what separates a casual hiker from a true tracker, and it is also what makes a silent trap effective. When you position a snare at a natural choke point, you are not merely setting a device. You are aligning yourself with the creature's own choices. Now consider how this knowledge fits into the modern world. In an age where screens dominate our attention, the act of stepping into a forest and reading its signs reconnects us with a primal part of ourselves. It reminds us that survival is not just about physical endurance, but also about mental clarity, patience, and respect. When we take only what we need and leave the rest untouched, we honor the balance that has sustained ecosystems for millennia. This ethic of take only what you need is something that can be practiced anywhere, whether you are living in a remote cabin or a suburban backyard. Even a small garden can become a laboratory for observing animal behavior, tracking insects, and testing simple traps that rely on natural materials. I want to invite you to turn today's learning into a personal experiment. Choose a nearby green space, a park, a forest preserve, or even a quiet corner of your own yard. Spend a few minutes each day simply walking slowly, eyes scanning the ground, ears attuned to subtle sounds. Look for fresh footprints, broken foliage, or signs of foraging. When you find a clue, pause, record what you see, and try to infer where the animal might be headed next. After a few days, compare your notes. Do patterns emerge? Are there particular times of day when activity spikes? This simple practice can sharpen your intuition and give you a tangible record of your progress. If you feel comfortable, consider building a low-tech trap using only natural elements you find on site. A simple deadfall trap, for example, can be assembled from a heavy branch, a trigger stick, and a natural camouflaging cover. The key is to keep the mechanism quiet, to blend it seamlessly with the surroundings, and to set it in a spot where you have observed consistent traffic. Remember, the purpose of these traps is not to cause unnecessary suffering, but to provide a humane means of obtaining sustenance when needed. Always check your trap frequently, release any non-target animals unharmed, and respect any local regulations that govern wildlife interaction. As you experiment, share your findings with the community. Post a photo of a track you've identified, describe the trap you built, or recount a moment when an animal's behavior surprised you. Engaging with others who share this passion creates a network of knowledge that benefits everyone. It also reinforces the idea that learning is a collective journey, not a solitary pursuit. When you comment on someone else's video or reply to a forum thread, you contribute to a living archive of practical wisdom that can be passed down through generations, just as our ancestors once whispered their secrets around the fire. Let's also take a moment to reflect on the deeper connection between hunter and hunted. In many cultures, the act of taking an animal is accompanied by rituals of gratitude, acknowledging the life that sustains us. You might choose to say a short thank you before setting a trap, or to offer a small portion of the harvest back to the land in the form of a seed planting or a respectful burial. These gestures reinforce the reciprocity that lies at the heart of sustainable living. They remind us that we are not above nature, but a part of its intricate web. Looking ahead, there are many avenues we can explore together. Future episodes will dive into advanced shelter construction, exploring how to create a windproof lintel using only natural branches and bark. We'll also examine fire starting techniques that rely on friction, demonstrating how to craft a bow drill from a simple sapling and a cordage made from plant fibers. Navigation by the stars will be another exciting topic, teaching you how to locate north using constellations without a compass. Each of these skills builds upon the foundation we have laid today, reinforcing the principle that knowledge compounds and mastery comes from consistent practice. Before we part, I want to ask you a question that gets to the core of why we embark on this journey. What does the forest mean to you personally? Is it a sanctuary, a classroom, a source of nourishment, or perhaps a place where you feel most alive? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hearing your stories adds richness to our shared experience and may inspire new directions for future content. If today's video sparked curiosity, if you found a new confidence in reading tracks, or if you simply enjoyed watching the process unfold, let that feeling guide you toward more exploration. A simple click on the like button tells the platform that this kind of content matters, and it also lets me know that you value these lessons. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you won't miss the upcoming deep dives into shelter, fire, and celestial navigation. Your support keeps this channel thriving and enables us to keep sharing the timeless wisdom of the wilderness. Remember, each step you take in the wild is a conversation with the earth. The more you listen, the richer the dialogue becomes. Keep a journal, sketch the patterns you observe, and never stop asking questions. When you return from an adventure, bring back not only stories but also any challenges you faced, because those moments often hold the greatest lessons. Together, we can build a community that honors the balance between taking and giving, that respects the delicate equilibrium of ecosystems, and that preserves the ancient knowledge that has sustained humanity for countless generations. So, as the sun dips below the horizon and the forest settles into twilight, take a moment to breathe in the scent of pine and damp earth. Feel the pulse of life beneath your feet, and know that you are part of a lineage of seekers who have walked these paths long before us. Carry that awareness with you wherever you go, and let it inform the way you interact with the world around you. Until we meet again on another trail, stay safe, stay curious, and keep the trail alive. The next time you step onto a moss-covered path, let the memory of today's lessons echo in each step, reminding you that the forest speaks in whispers and footprints alike. Imagine the satisfaction of spotting a fresh set of prints and instantly knowing the animal's direction, speed, and even its recent meal's knowledge that turns uncertainty into confidence and curiosity into mastery. As you practice, you'll notice how the smallest details, a bent twig, a faint scent trail, the pattern of a broken leaf become clues that guide you toward success, whether you're hunting for sustenance or simply seeking a deeper connection with the wild. I'd love to hear how you plan to apply these skills in your own adventures. Will you try setting a silent snare this weekend? Or perhaps you'll focus on honing your track reading before the first frost. Share your plans in the comments, and let's inspire one another to keep learning and growing together. If a particular technique resonated with you, let me know which one and why it helps shape future videos that dive even deeper into the craft. Remember, every expedition is an invitation to become a better observer, a more respectful steward, and a livelier participant in the natural world. Keep a small notebook tucked in your pack. Jot down the tracks you identify, the habitats you explore, and the moments that surprise you. Over time, those pages will become a personal field guide, a testament to your progress and a source of insight for anyone who follows your trail. If you found value in today's walkthrough, a quick tap on the like button signals to the platform that this kind of content matters, and it also tells me that you're ready for the